But as long as both parties understand, hey, we are on the same team here. I'm not trying to make you a worse person. I'm trying to make you a better person.
First and foremost, a marriage is an assignment. So if you have that lens, or if you have that right perspective, the eagerness to get into marriage would lessen. It would be the same. It would be as ridiculous as being envious of someone for having more homework than you.
He's dropping gems here. What's up, friends? Jeremiah here once again, and I'm here with
Okay.
my lovely and amazing wife. And once again, we're talking about marriage secrets, but this week is for the ladies. And so if you haven't seen last week's episode where we talked about marriage secrets from Christian men, then you can check it out after you watch this video or before you watch this video. I'll leave a card up in this corner here. So last time, which really is something we just recorded, we were talking about, or we left off talking about family and extended influences. And so now today's about the ladies. So the ball is in your court. What do you have to say to Christian women who either are just getting into marriage, they want to be married, but there is some element of like familial issues in terms of extended family influence? What would you say to them?
Well, I would first of all say that the level of priority something has, or the effect something has on you, is based on you. So we can definitely go on and talk about like family influence, but honestly and truly, if you decide within yourself that it doesn't really matter, then it will not really matter. The reason I say that is because I would rather touch on you yourself as an individual going into the marriage. You know what I mean? The reason I say that is there has to be, especially within the single season, the dating season and everything, there has to be some level of truth and understanding within yourself that is way more important than, you, like we talked about in our last recording, our last video, that you cannot have your parents or anyone else's voice higher than your spouse, and especially when they become your husband, even as they're your boyfriend and you are becoming more serious and this is the person that you want to go into a union with, they definitely need to have a high priority, But the reason I say all that and say that that's fundamental, that's important, is because your mindset on marriage in general has to first be fixed. If it's not aligned with what God originally intended marriage to be like for you. There's a lot of emphasis, especially in the Christian community. There's a lot of importance in women getting married. And don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna at all knock it, because it is important and everything. But it needs to be seen from a right lens, from a right perspective. The level of importance, a lot of the times we unfortunately attribute it to a feeling. Everyone wants to feel chosen. Everyone wants to feel, beloved by somebody, and that in of itself is not wrong. It's only wrong when it super opposes, or when it comes above what its original intent was for. First and foremost, a marriage is an assignment. So if you have that lens, or if you have that right perspective, the eagerness to get into marriage would lessen. It would be the same. It would be as ridiculous as being envious of someone for having more homework than you, because it's a completely different assignment, and singleness is an assignment as well. But if you have it if you have the mindset of, okay, now I'm going to be placed in a position where I am stretched to my limit, and even beyond it, where I'm stretched to grow, and I'm stretched to expand and all these things, you would spend more time increasing your capacity. Yeah, exactly. Like, doing the push-ups and the pull-ups and all these things, just so you are in a great place, in a healthy place, and everything, to go moving forward and everything. To go on to your previous question, honestly, you make family as important as you see beneficial to your relationship with your future spouse. If you are placing them in a place where it's hurting who you're with, then you are making you don't have your priorities in the right order, and that would be very detrimental moving forward.
Right. And let's I mean, yeah, we're trying to account for people who are not yet in marriage, but really the context is marriage, because there's a certain level where as singles it's like you're still technically under your parents. Even if you don't live with your parents, you're not under their roof. So we want to keep the context. We want to be clear on what the context is, that you are preparing your mind for marriage so that when it gets there, it doesn't become an issue. But within the confines of marriage, you have to understand that now you have left your father and mother, and you have clung, if you're a man, to your wife, and vice versa. So the priorities shift. And it doesn't mean now you hate your family. It doesn't mean like you reject them or whatever. But it does mean that the way they influence your life changes. And that's why you have a lot of marriages that fall apart, because the man can't stop being a mama's boy, or the woman can't stop listening to her mom and her sisters or whatever, and that happens time and time again. But if you go into the marriage understanding that there's a shift that's about to happen, and frankly, not everyone needs to know your business. Your family members don't need to know what's going on in your marriage, because then you're introducing that influence. When you go into the marriage with that shift in mindset, then you're on the right track. I think that's what we are talking about here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So now run me back, and it's not like I was in there, but we got married in July of 2021, right? And you got pregnant in September of 2021. What was that like? What was it like navigating, like being a new wife, and suddenly you're expecting to be a mom in the next few months? What was it like mindset wise, and walk me through it?
Well, just based on how I am personally, I like to take things one day at a time. It was already a big adjustment to now living with a guy for the first time ever. And then now having this person have such, an impact and influence, or say so, in the way I live my life and the things that we are, the goals and our dreams and everything that we have planned and everything for the future. And then now all of a sudden, boom, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't know how it happened. It's like suddenly you're just pregnant. Like,
a whole new life to account for.
Yeah.
A whole new life to account for and things like that. So definitely taking it one day at a time. I think we had to both keep reminding ourselves, hey, he's not here yet, in terms of physically born yet. Yeah. So we know we have this amount of time, which 9 months, to at least get certain things rolling, and our goal is to work towards those things. And if we fall short, then our plans, at least we know that we are getting
emotion at least.
Exactly. So we both had to work. We both individually and collectively work on just the mindset, just the mentality of it. I fortunately had younger brothers that came way later in life. I was old enough to be placed, to be responsible for them. So having prior knowledge and having prior experience definitely helped with younger siblings and everything. But also knowing, okay, now this is my kid. It's a completely different shift than being an older sister, because when things got overwhelming, go to your mom. My catchphrase in the house is go to your mama. But it was different, but it wasn't so different just because
you had the experience type of thing. Different from me, who didn't grow up with a little kid in the house. Yes. And I do have a little sister who's 20 years younger than me, but by then I was already out, so I didn't have that experience. So it took more adjusting on my side, and also to learn how to support you as you're going through stuff, because I know we're both going through it, but your body is literally being used to nurture a new life. And so what you're going through is significantly more testing than what I'm going through. Mine might be a mental battle, but you're going through everything from the mental part to the spiritual part to the physical feeling part, and for a lot of women, I would assume, from our conversations, the changes that come with that is a little bit jarring, right? So what would be your advice to a married woman who's like, I'm even scared of having a kid, or I'm afraid of getting pregnant because I've spent so much time taking care of myself, or and now I'm afraid to go through certain changes because it could even be because of what they think their husbands will see, or what they think their husbands will say once their bodies start changing. What would you say to that? Because I believe that's a real struggle with women.
Well, first, there definitely needed to be a lot more things put in place before even the pregnancy. They definitely, I'm a huge supporter of just marriage in general. If your heart desire is to be married, then be married before, and it's not just a type thing, because now when those feelings come into place, the reason that it wasn't as overwhelming for me was because I definitely had God's input in who to marry. That was a big factor into why I wasn't as overwhelmed as I would typically be, because I knew that I had a great person on my team, a great support, obviously, which is you. But like in terms of having God like guiding you and directing you on what a good husband should look like, what a good partner is, and then whenever the union happens and things like that, it's not so unpredictable. There's so much already in pregnancy that is unpredictable. There's a lot of things, there's so many complications that, and you don't want your exterior to also be complicated as well, because now you knew your body all your life, but now you're learning your body in a whole new way.
Right.
So you don't want to also be learning, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my strong advice would be to know who your spouse is, at least well enough to know that this person is someone that handles certain things in a healthy manner. They handle stress, they handle uncertainties, they handle, and they're able to take it in strides, and things like that. And also communicating. I feel like we had to over communicate.
Oh yeah, that's the word, over communicate.
Yeah, it's
like every little detail.
Exactly, because certain things that were okay with you now is not, and then communicating that, like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that, whatever the case may be, and everything. And one thing I really appreciate was just the honesty that we had in that period, and even till this day, where it was like the fears, we were able to let out the fears. It wasn't just, oh my God, I don't want to say anything that might make her feel like, this or that, or I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't always easy to hear, and it wasn't always like taken in a positive way, but after you communicate, like, also let them know, but this is where I'm at though. This is where I'm at. Does not mean I'm permanently there. Does not mean that I'm not eventually gonna become more accepting or more, not, what I mean? Like in terms of, but this is where I'm at. This is the fears that I'm facing. This is what my reality feels like to me right now, and the overwhelmingness of it all.
And the other person being open to even work through that.
Exactly.
A term that we use a lot in our marriage, frankly, you use it more than me, is training.
Yes.
And so can you speak on that? We talk about the fact that as much as we're both under God and submitted to Him, and we're learning from the Spirit, and it's not really like, we're not the creator, so we can't I can't force you to become something He didn't create you to be. There's still an element, even with that considered, there's still an element of training. There's still an element of me learning to be your husband, like your husband, not just a husband, but your husband. And there's an element of you learning to be my wife. So can you speak on that? What goes into that? What happens when, or if the person, maybe the husband, isn't willing to be trained, or if the wife isn't willing to be trained?
Well, it's kind of hard to let me backtrack a little. First, there has to be love, like genuine love, like Christ's level, standard of love, and that needs to be something that has to be understood to a degree by both parties. And with Christ's love, it's simply a choice. It is in its basic, most, it's just one word, a choice, which is, so if you choose whether or not I can have an influence on your behavior. You choose, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And vice versa. So if we don't have that fundamental right, it's hard navigating, you know what I mean? Because I'm going to do things that will set you off and vice versa. But if we are not, in a place of I'm choosing you, I'm choosing our marriage, I'm choosing the life that we are building, I'm choosing Christ above how I'm feeling, then it's tricky. We're treading on tricky waters at that point. So when you talk about training, the training happens on all fronts. You're training me, God is training me. I'm looking within myself and I'm training myself because I see where God. So everybody in the picture, everybody in that is important, hence the husband and wife, they have to have some level of I'm working towards this person that I know God is calling me to be, this spouse, with this mindset and this, this level of maturity and, this is my goal. So then it's a little bit, it's not gonna be easy, but it's a little bit more accepting for you to call things out in me because you see the image, you see the picture, you see, what God is transforming me into. And we kind of talked about it in our last video, but first the fundamental has to be already in place, and then one thing that we definitely talked a lot on when we were dating was that establishing that you are on my team. You know what I mean? So that didn't always look like that whenever we were in the heat of a argument or anything like that. It didn't always feel like that, but when we have that place in our minds, exactly, it wasn't so heavily based on how you were in the moment, exactly, in that moment of like frustration or that season of doubt or fear and all these other things. So and then understanding that you are not perfect and your spouse is not a perfect person. So yes, I'm telling you, hey, this is how I want to be treated, this is how I want you to relate to me, but I'm seeing signs that are completely opposite from what we communicated. Understanding that, similar to anything, it takes time, it takes patience, what I mean? It takes,
practice.
Exactly. It takes reminding that person lovingly, tactfully, over and over and over again, and understanding that this person cares about you and they are working on it. It just might not be as quickly as you want to see it, and that's something that was big. For instance, I mean, something that, we both know is me coming in to the office whenever you're working and things like that, and you tell me one time, you tell me two times, and things like that. And it's like, okay, with enough repetition, at least for me, and I feel like you kind of have learned that with when you're talking to me, you see it's slowly decreasing, and you see, and you can definitely talk more on things like that. But understanding that there are just certain things that, there are certain things that you say once and boom, I got it. I don't ever do it again, or or relate to you in that manner. But there's certain things that
it just takes time.
Exactly.
And I think when you're also aware of the fact that you don't get it right all the time, you're able to have more grace. So if I tell you, like the example you use, hey, when I'm working between these hours and I'm like in the zone, don't come pull me out of the zone. I have no right to get frustrated because you are also training me in other things that I mess up all the time. So the same way that I want you to lovingly correct me when I drop the ball, whether it's like, hey, like I'm taking care of the baby right now, can you take care of the dishes or do this and that, and I forget, and things like that happen over and over again. The same way I expect you to lovingly correct me and pull me back, be like, hey, you're kind of dropping the ball in this aspect of our lives. That's the same way I ought to lovingly correct him, be like, babe, now what did I say, something like that. So that has to be the foundation of the training, along with, I like what you said about being a team, because now we don't even have to remind ourselves of that, but it used to be like a constant thing. After or during or after every argument, we would have to remind each other that, hey, we are on the same team. But because we've reminded each other of that so much, I don't remember the last time we said that. It's like it's ingrained. We know that we're on the same team. I mean, being married is definitely a better picture of that than when we were dating, for sure. So that helps. but it's still an ingrained truth. It's like the foundation. And as long as that is our foundation, that hey, no matter what, even if it's an argument, if we're disagreeing on something, if we don't like each other right now, we are still on the same team. That plays into the way we live. That plays into the way we relate with other people. It even plays into the way other people relate with us, because they know that we can't mess with these two because they're on the same team. If I come for Oge, I'm coming for Jeremiah, and vice versa. So that still goes back to the whole like family thing. They're able to see that you can't really play devil's advocate between these people. Anything you want to add to that, or do you have some piece of advice that you want to give to women who are newly married? Like in our situation, we're only 2 years in. By the time this video comes out on YouTube, we'll be 3 days, I believe, away from our second anniversary. So do you have any advice for a woman who is a year, 2 years, just getting into marriage, a month, 2 months?
Yeah, would definitely be, like we said, the mindset of it is me, God, and my partner against the world. You know what I mean? And for so long, especially with females, it's me and my mom against the world. You know, whatever my mom wants, what, you know, I mean, especially growing up in an African household, Nigerian, it's heavily more ingrained, and you know, everyone's different. But then now entering a new season in life, it's understanding that I have separated in terms of like I'm establishing a new home with a partner, you know, with my husband. So it is me and my husband in this new home of ours, and God against, you know what I mean? And it's not like we're fighting anybody, you know what I mean? But
if it came down to it,
ultimately, it needs to be really ingrained, and that's not an overnight thing. So what does that look like in a practical sense is that no one has any type of right to talk about you or talk about what we're doing, especially in my presence. It's one thing if it's, you know, hearsay, he say shit, that you can't control that. But if it's in my presence, then we have a problem. You know, I don't care how much you feel like you know me or how long you think you've known me. Does not mean that I'll be rude or disrespectful, not at all. But establishing boundaries and moving accordingly when those boundaries are not respected. You know, because it's if I relate to them and with the oge of my single season, you know what I mean? If you know, understanding now, no, I have to be the oge of that is beneficial to this season in my life and everything. So if I relate to them with that oge, then I just end up messing up everything, because I can't have that oge of that season that was all about pleasing mom and, you know, adhering to her wishes, thrive in, you know what I mean, in the oge that needs to have God, husband, you know, family, and all these things in the right place and everything.
Nice. Anything else? Final words? If y'all want us to do this again, y'all can drop it in the comments, because she's dropping gems here. But me, I don't want to speak to the women. I spoke to the men as much as I could, and you did too. So if you haven't seen the episode or the video where we talk to Christian men, we talk about how to navigate, you know, marriage as a newlywed Christian man, then you can check out that video. It'll be popping up on the screen anytime soon. But any final thing that you'd like to say before we go?
I don't want to raise a whole new. Well, actually, I think I might end up having to raise a whole new point.
Go ahead.
With your words. Words are important. Words are definitely important. So like, say it to yourself. And if it hurts your feelings, then don't say it at all. You know, if it's something that you don't want to hear in that way, in that manner, in that time, you know what I mean, then find a good way to say it. You know, find a healthy way or a tactful way, be tactful about it, to say to your spouse, so where they can make the necessary changes that you desire without feeling like, oh, you know, am I that bad?
Yeah, like you're being attacked or something. Yeah, and that's one thing that I appreciate about you, because, and maybe this is a tip for other women watching as well, is that you are very introspective. You're very reflective. You're not someone who like feels attacked. I mean, it took some time to get there, right? But right now, you're not someone who feels attacked just by the mere suggestion of a change, or like a needed change, or even if it's not needed, a wanted change, and you're able to sit down and be like, you know what, I didn't do this the way I should have done it. And I think that's been so key in our marriage. Not just, obviously not just you, it takes two to tango, but having that mindset of like, okay, not everything is an attack. Sometimes you just suck at doing something. Sometimes I just suck at doing something, right? And if you come to me and you're like, hey, you need to do this better, of course, like you said, do it in a tactful way, do it in a loving way, but understand that even when you do it in a loving and tactful way, it may not always be received in that way. But as long as both parties understand, hey, we are on the same team here. I'm not trying to make you a worse person. I'm trying to make you a better person. And that sounds like weird, but like not make you a better person, but I'm helping you to become a better person and a better husband slash wife. So, kind of like allow yourselves to be corrected. And with that, we're gonna wrap up this week's video. And again, if you haven't seen the first one, check it out. It'll be popping up here, and I'll catch you guys next time. If you all want Oge back some other time, let me know, and I'll definitely have her. It's not like I have to go somewhere far to find her. So y'all take care. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.